participated. I don't know that there's anything that I do that isn't driven, I'm not compelled by my past experience and my history, which is really deeply family and culture and family. So this one isn't my grandmother's name. This one is a Chinese character for love, joy, peace. But I have another necklace that's literally my grandmother's name, which is actually my name. My name is Lucido. It's a gold hiragana character that I often wear, and I wear it on days that I know are going to be particularly challenging. It kind of grounds me and psychologically provides me with inner strength. I remember that this is small in comparison to all the things that come forward, and there's possibility and change. It's what I've learned from my family.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm not very flashy, but I always got a little notebook on me. And my notebook, I have it on me all the time. I have one by my bed. I have them around the house. They have plans for little projects. They could have meeting notes from the latest town hall I went to, ideas from stuff I picked out of movies or songs, outlines of things I've written, things that I want to write. So I always have my notebook with me, and it's always good with everything I'm doing and everything I'm doing. I'm not eating or sleeping. I'm probably working on something.
Awesome.
All right, I have to get mine. And I have to do this. I love pandas. Will you talk? Oh, he's not talking. The I love pandas comes from, oh, I better, yeah, sorry. He'll talk the entire time if you don't shut him off. When my brother got his first job, my brother's 12 years older than I am. So he got his first job at 18, and he bought my sister a koala bear, and he bought me a panda bear. And I still have that original panda. I have about, last count that the grandchildren did, there's about 4,000 pandas that I own in various forms and formats. I've been to China when I worked in the Wulong, China, the panda reserve there, with the new babies. They had 12 new babies the year that we were there in 2007. It's something that connects me to my family, but it also connects me to my friends who bring me things all the time, right? And it's just always fun. It's like, I saw this, and I thought of you, and you have one. And most of the time I don't, right? Because people find unique things. And I have very few that are actually duplicates. And this one is just kind of a fun one, because the grandkids like it so much. My children thought pandas were part of their decoration in their bedrooms until they realized they were just me storing my stuff in their areas. And so now if you ever come to my home, if you go in the basement, there is a panda room. And one of my brother-in-laws has dubbed it the room of 1,000 eyes, because they're like all over the place and on the walls. So yeah, you'll see them everywhere. They're hanging on stuff. I mean, they're everywhere, and I love it. And, my black and white and green world. Oh, I'll put him back now.
Thank you so much for sharing.
So I just brought something that was gifted to me most recently at my brother's passing. It was given to us by my mother to one of her siblings, and it was most important to let us know that the connection to family and everything that we do as a family, and more than anything, as it's a colloquial part of this community. And she reminded me that even though I was going to be very far away, that I was still going to be close to them. And for us, it was very important because I don't know if I mentioned it, but everybody knows I am 9 of 9 children. So I am the youngest, and we're all kind of spread out across the country. So it's a good way to kind of feel that connection, and I feel that it's also very important given the roles that we all play in education, because we all play an integral part in something that we do for each one of our roles as a kids.
Thank you, Susan. And my father is 10 out of 13. So I don't even understand. So I did get the memo. I just forgot because I've been running around like crazy. But that's wonderful because, you know, universe, I strongly believe the universe always gives us a chance to really talk about things that really matter to us. And it's a good thing because I always carry something that has sunflowers on it. I just recently actually started loving sunflowers, and then I started really getting deep diving into my spiritual journey as well too, and found out that actually sunflowers are reminders for people of those who seek deeper spiritual understanding and even enlightenment. Often growing in fields full of other sunflowers, they also represent community and fellow devotees to a given faith. And so that just truly like shows who I am at the core, is that even though I have a lot of titles and stuff, I'm not just one version of me. And that's one of the things that I really love about myself, is that I'm very much a chameleon. And people don't always expect the same out of me when they meet me in different like venues and stuff like that. Like I am a human being, I'm a person, and I share that with folks, and that also means that I am also, you know, not perfect all the time. I'm very imperfect, but loving those imperfect parts of myself has really been able to share with me and be able to share with other folks my authenticity when it comes to leadership and truth, and just me as a friend and family. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Jess, I'd love you to have the opportunity to share as well.
This, you'll see in my background. Hold on. Okay, let me move it out of the way. This is my Kenny Easley jersey. I received this jersey when I was 10 years old. I've been a lifelong Seahawk fan. And I got it from my Uncle Ron, who is my namesake, who I'm named after. And I wore it most Sundays from the time I was 10 until I was in my mid-30s. So it's been through a big journey with me. And so you can see next to it is the article from the Seattle Times where the Seahawks won the Super Bowl 38. So after that happened, my wife made me retire the jersey and said I shouldn't wear it anymore. Because, like, you know, I was a growing boy, you know. And, so she mounted it for me, put the article from the Seattle Times with it, and then just this last 6 months ago, so this jersey is Kenny Easley, who was drafted by the Seahawks in 1983, and he went to Washington, D.C. in January for a football game, and I went to an event that he was at, and so I was able to get his autograph, and I put it up there with it. Like, you can't see it, it's in the high corner. I had him sign a business card because I didn't want to take this across the country. But it just signifies like my family, the adventures, the journey I've had, how I'm a loyal person. I'm still a Seahawk fan, even though we've had some really rough times and some really great times. And then I always think of my Uncle Ron too, you know, just a part of my family.
Thank you so much.
Go Seahawks. Go Seahawks.
Yeah, Pam. Sorry. We're going to mute that. I would love to give Pam Jordan the opportunity to share something with us as well.
I emailed it to Vince, and I guess I'll email it to all of you too. It's just a photograph. And that's what I do in my other life.
Is that the green room?
Which COVID has just crushed. But yeah, that's down at Portland Center Stage. You know, they have a little bar and a little restaurant off to the side. That was a few years ago. And I sing and play guitar. Mostly original stuff. Some jazz standards, a few pop tunes. It makes me happy. When I'm not doing it, I'm not happy. I'm really not. I'm
Yeah.
a grumpy, really grumpy person. And a curmudgeon. So I'm getting back around to that. So there you go.
Love it. Oh, thank you all so much for sharing. Let's see here. So next up, I'm going to take a second and say I really appreciate all of you for being in the spirit, jumping in, even if you didn't bring something, sharing. It's really great to get to know everyone a little bit better, and I think that deepening those relationships and knowing everybody on a little bit more of a personal level really helps us connect to the work and with each other. So I want to thank you. I also want to say there's going to be food throughout the day. There currently is some Greek yogurt and berries and nuts over there. There's coffee and tea over here. Bathrooms are down the hall that way. You'll look for the sign. Take care of yourself as we go through the day. Feel free to get up and get yourself food, water, bathroom as you need. So, welcome to 2022 Summer Retreat. Yay! Yes. All right, so we will go to the adoption of the agenda. So the meeting agenda currently in front of you, it's also been distributed in board book. Are there any amendments to the agenda that we see?
Motion to approve agenda as is.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. It is a unanimous vote. Our agenda has been adopted and we can move forward. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our guest, Vince, who is here from OSBA, and he's going to run us through. We've spent several months, even before I started, you were working with the Centennial Board on creating some operating agreements and some different documents, and I'm really excited for you to get to share with us today kind of the culmination of all our work. So welcome, Vince.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Y'all are so cool for having your retreat at Edgefield. And I gotta tell you, people can see, my team can see my calendar. And they're like, what? You're going to the Edgefield? What is that? And it's like, hey, that's where they held their retreat. I didn't know at the Edgefield. So you guys are like, order of magnitude more cool than any other board.
You know it.
So cool. So the board did a lot of work going through a process that I pushed them through, pulling out what their values and expectations for their work would be. You probably have traumatic memories of that, of trying to go through that and having those hard conversations. And I took all that raw material and I drafted that into a board operating agreement and board superintendent operating agreement. Now, just to take us back, these operating agreements are really a brief pitching. I probably should turn on the mic so Jess can hear me. Jess, can you hear me? He's talking and the screen turned on. I'm going to take that as an affirmative. Yes, he can hear me. So these operating agreements are documents that are restatements of things that are in policy already. I mean, the board has policies that talk about your expectations for yourselves and how you're going to conduct your meetings. Really, the purpose of these documents is to focus the board's attention on what you want to work on and encapsulate those really good things you want to hang on to over time. Because the reality is that boards come and boards go. The characters change on a board fairly regularly. So we want to capture the good things on a board to transmit that into the future. It's kind of like a message in a bottle to to the Centennial board that's going to come in the next, 4 to 8 years? What's good about this board? So as we're going through this, I want you to think about that. What do we want to keep? And then what's missing in these documents? What did Vince not get right? And at a fairly granular level. I mean, if I put words in there that don't fit your board, we need to change that. So the way we're going to do that, and I think everybody has access to Mural, even people that are not on the board, and that's okay because we can all work on this. So the first thing that we need to do is learn how to work in Mural. And I don't know if we did this before. Some boards, so you guys didn't actually get in the environment. I was actually madly typing in your stuff. Okay, this is a lot faster and a lot more fun. So I'm just giving you a prompt. Now I'm gonna do a little instruction here. So shapes and connectors, text. So over here on the left-hand side in your environment, you'll have this thing where you can put sticky notes on here. So I gave you a prompt. This is kind of fun. This is kind of an extension of what we were just doing, taking time to get to know each other. Put down what's your favorite thing to cook. And so for me, I'm just going to grab that, put it in there, and I'm going to say BBQ ribs. There. And so that's mine. I'm going to put it there. Now we're not going to vote on anything. There's a voting function in here, but go ahead and just, oh, I like that pulled pork. Oh yeah, make it big. You can resize and do
How
it.
do you get in? Share?
I gave them a link. Pam, can you, for the rest
You
of
don't want
staff
us
that
to take
are present? No, no. Can you share the link to the staff? We can take time for that.
Although no, I can't. Who put?
I love stinky wings, which is really funny because in our house we have a recipe called sticky chicken, which is kind of like this Asian teriyaki chicken thing that you do in a pan. But we always call it stinky chicken just because that's being silly. So I love that. Sticky wings, I totally get it. Barbecue burgers and hot dogs, yes. Flanken ribs? What are flanken ribs? I want to know.
It's the long beef ribs.
Oh, yeah? So dinosaur ribs? Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, corn on the cob. Fresh from the.
Yes. Ooh, grilling ribeyes in summer. Yes, yes, yes. Ooh, Claudia. Cucumbers and onions. Yes. We had that last night. Fajitas. So this is just to get us comfortable with entering text in the environment here. Is because what we're going to do, yeah, Pam?
Where did you drag this from? I'm getting all kinds of things.
The link or?
Oh, I'm up in it. I just have.
Oh, I see. On the left-hand side,
Looking around trying to figure it out.
look on the screen, text.
Okay.
And then you pop that open. And then you can grab sticky notes.
Okay.
Okay? And that's all we're going to have to do today. Now, we could also do voting in this if we wanted to prioritize, but we're not going to need to prioritize. We're just going to get a bunch of input from people, reactions to the document. We'll talk through things and work through the document.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to do a check-in and see if there's anybody that hasn't been able to put any text on the screen. Do you have a link?
Yeah, it's still uploading.
I want to make sure that you're okay. I have
I'm not sure
not
if you've
seen
had
it
Pok
from the
Pok.
user side, so.
Oh,
it's
Pok Pok
still
chicken?
loading.
Vietnamese,
Or Pok Pok, yes.
Vietnamese, and so it has a lot of fish sauce in it,
Oh, yeah.
and it tastes delicious, but it has an aroma some people don't care for when you're cooking it, and like cooking down the marinade or the sauce. Yeah, so they call it sticky noodles.
Ah, yeah. I don't know
online.
You are connected to the
Yes.
internet? Did you copy it? Did you copy it and
Oh,
paste it in?
yeah, I did not tell him to copy it. Oh.
Yeah, that's right. Cross your fingers. Please load.
I know the Wi-Fi has been slow.
Yeah, are you on guest or are you on events? Okay, change it to events.
So to keep us moving, you're welcome to yell down the table and say, put this up there, and I'll happily key it in for you. Oh boy, we've got a lot of things up here, and that is hard to read. All right, wow, we've got a lot here. My barbecue ribs, the big dinosaur flanking ribs, grilled veggies, yes, fajitas, wonderful. You are good summer people. You're my kind of people. Ooh, yes, bulgogi beef,
bulgogi.
Korean beef.
Who put that?
And baby back ribs, I like the change in font there. That's awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're feeling pretty comfortable. We're getting him figured out, but the group's going ahead, and we've got connectivity. I'm going to bring this screen down, and I'm going to open my outline and take us to the first one. So the way this is going to work is that I'm going to read the line, and then I'm going to just have the group react to that. And we can raise any questions. Embedded in this process is a little bit of board roles and responsibilities. I love teaching roles and responsibilities from a board operating agreement because these are kind of your values. This is what the board has highlighted. So let's go ahead and jump in here. And so number one, under board roles and responsibilities, focus on governance. Which includes policymaking, strategic planning, and evaluation of student needs and district performance. Evaluation, and I think we need to, I'm going to say, I need a text thing because I found a typo already. And so on that first one, and to help me, just type a 1 since we're on number 1. So it's going to be evaluation of ... And that's just telling me that I left a word out, which happens. Okay. And while we're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and lock this, and only facilitators can unlock. You can click on it. So yeah, no, I did the wrong thing. Here. Nope, it's locked. I didn't want to do that, sorry. And I'm going to unlock that and move it there and get it out of the way. Okay, so any questions on number 1? I'm going to close these so we can actually see what we're working on. And zoom in. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk briefly about the, because when you, Rose, and I met, we talked about strategic planning and kind of the district roles with getting it coordinated and facilitating the operational elements versus the board's role with that. And I was hoping you might be able to tease that out a little bit for us.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction to make. So, we hear this term strategic planning, and it brings a whole panoply of different concepts to the fore. But we need to remember that the board really has a governance role, and is really focused on prioritization. We don't have operational capacity as board members. And so when we talk about the actual strategic plan and use that in a technical sense, that's actually an operational plan. And internally at OSBA, we really talk about what boards do as strategic prioritization. And so I don't have the diagram in front of me, but when we facilitate these processes, we really focus on those priorities. Sometimes we call them focus areas, or we call them pillars, or or goals. My own district, we call them district or board goals. We have 5 of them, and that's a pretty typical number. There's usually 4 to 6 of them. And then in that process, we take those, and you can think of those priorities kind of like mini vision statements. What are our expectations? What is our vision for academic achievement? What is our vision for student wellness? What is our vision for facilities in the district? So you get the idea. And then we roll those up into mission and vision. So we kind of do it backwards, but understand that we're working on the very top of your strategic documents. Below that, your staff, your experts in the room, because remember that if you are able to vote in the district and you draw breath, you can be elected onto the school board. There's no expectation that a school board member has any expertise in pedagogy or school administration or even school governance. None of you knew anything about school board work until you got onto the school board and started learning it. I'm the same way. I have no formal training in pedagogy. I don't know anything about education. Everything I know about education I learned from the staff that they taught me. So that's why when we move to strategies and actions that the district is going to take in classrooms, we hand that plan over to our staff because they're the professionals and experts in that space. And so that doesn't mean that the board doesn't have informed oversight. And as the superintendent and his team are building out that plan, you're probably going to have check-ins on what that plan is starting to look like. And you'll also need to identify what your tracking metrics are, because you're going to be identifying where you want to go, and the board will need to be able to track progress. And so that's kind of the last step, is what are those strategic indicators? And not too many, because pulling data, especially when it's disaggregated by student groups, is pretty laborious. So we need to be pretty parsimonious and compact in the suite of indicators that the board is going to choose to track, because we don't want to put too much on our staff. They're going to be looking at a lot of different data, but as board members, we don't get to see all of that. Any questions about that?
Not maybe a question, more a statement. For that even to work, it means that boards have to have training when they come on board. Because to understand one, you have to understand the role, and new board members need that onboarding process to understand number one. And it does say in our policies that our superintendent will do the onboarding, but that's a tough one for new board members.
It is.
Most of us come to board work because we see if there's a need or if we want to have an impact. But focusing on policy making and planning is.
Yeah, Pam.
We usually come from a I want to do this rather than I want to oversee it. So it's a transition that new board members have to make.
So I was at the training at the OSBA summer conference for the executive assistants and board secretaries. There was a lot of talk about board onboarding, and I had talked to James about pulling something together for new board members. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to find the time to do that.
I have a really nice guide that I can share with you. Yeah, that it's basically an outline. It has links to OSBA documents and gives you prompts on what internal documents do you want to share, and it's laid out across the whole first year. So it starts, in June. So it's right after the May election. So you can start training board members even before they're sworn in and seated. So, Pam, I really appreciate your comments. That as board members, we're given a really big responsibility. We're expected to govern an education organization, but we're only given really 3 levers to do that. Big levers. I mean, one is hiring an administrator. The other is
adopting policy, and then approving a budget. Everything else is really window dressing. So you only have 3 levers to pull. So it takes a lot of patience and time and a long view to make change and affect change and transform the system. Good comments. Any feedback on one? Does the board like this? I mean, with my change, I need to wordsmith that a little bit. I'm not seeing people putting, this is awful, reword it.
Well, should we have, we just talked about budgets, so I was wondering if there needed to be something.
You won't. Yeah, we can add budget. 1, add budget. Okay. Make it really focus on those 3 pieces.
Yeah, well, they said, it seems like that should be front and center on number 1.
Okay, so with that, I want to keep moving here because I don't want to use up all your time. Number 2, uphold the legal, compliance, and confidentiality requirements on all matters arising from board meetings and executive session. Do we need to keep this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, it's a training issue, right? But making the statement begs the question, what does that mean? And if you were new, you would be able to say, okay, what does that mean for me as a new member? And
Yep.
as a member who's a returning member, it's like a reminder, that's my responsibility.
Yeah, and this is, reinforces that idea that anything that transpires in executive session has to remain confidential. That's the whole point of that. It protects the people that are involved in those processes. And of course, protects the board and district from liability, but we want to respect that space. Okay, number 3, the chair will keep members informed of relevant board logistics and other topics between meetings, facilitate meetings in accordance with the procedural rules and norms of the board. So 2 concepts here is that it recognizes that the chair is the facilitator for the board, but meetings belong to the board itself. I mean, the chair is a servant leader, so is a facilitator, and so you're going to be guiding the board on logistics and how the board is going to operate outside of meetings, and then upholding the rules of the board, because the board sets the expectations for what your meetings are going to be like. This is your room, at least for the few hours that you're here, but in your boardroom, it's your room, and you set the standards, okay? And the chair is just the keeper of the rules. Is there any adjustments that we need to make to that? Is there anything that's missing? Yeah.
I'm just wordsmithing.
Yeah, wordsmith away. If you need multiple things, or if you need a bigger one, you can make it bigger. And please, feel free to scroll out. That's why I put you in the mural environment, so you can scroll out and you can make a big giant square if you want. So you're free to mark this up. I will figure it out after the fact. I'm going to move this out of the way. I know someone was probably writing in that, but I want to be able to read it. And I want to make this big enough so individuals can read it on the board here. Okay. Any further discussion on 3?
I noticed that Jess has his hand up.
Yeah, Jess. Unmute and
Sorry, yeah. Just a couple things. It goes a little bit back to the communication, our roles and responsibilities conversation, where, we might know these roles and responsibilities, but a lot of times the community doesn't realize it, so they're asking us about day-to-day decisions, and we empower James to empower others. I understand that, and this is something that maybe we talk about later in the communication piece. that PTA for the district personnel, that's great. But it is challenging when it's like, they're like, well, you're on board. Hey, it's like, no, that's not how it works. And so, I mean, just ideas on how we can communicate that to the public. Like, I'm not in charge of recruiting. You don't really want me in charge of recruiting. So, oh, it's way back. So, anyway, that was my comment.
So Jess, I really appreciate your comment there, and I want you to jot a note down, and we're going to go over to the board superintendent operating agreement part. This is just the board operating agreement that we're working through right now, but hold on to that idea, and let's make sure that there is some mention of empowerment governance, that the board is empowering the superintendent and staff to operate schools, and that's how the board wants to operate. So hang on to that, because I may not remember it, and so let's come back to that. Unless we want to put it up here in number 1 here. Focus on governance, policy and strategic planning, evaluation, student needs, and district empowerment. The board will empower staff to, you know, we can include that in number 1. What do board members think of that?
I think it's a different idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it actually works in 4, because I have some
Yeah.
challenges with 4. Because if you don't have a shared understanding about the word ambassador, you're going to have trouble.
Okay.
So,
What would be a better word for ambassador? Or a better turn of phrase?
I would strike the sentence.
Yeah, okay.
And because right now, it says the board will act to the schools, right?
Mhm.
Board member walks into a school, and the first thing is what have we done wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Now, our policy says we have to go through our superintendent before we walk into the building.
Correct.
Because that's the perception that happens when a board member walks into a school without any, you know, why I'm coming, so to speak. So, and then later on in this document somewhere, we talk about the board acts as one voice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say you're an ambassador to the community and to the district, I mean, it sounds like we're all individually going out doing things. And I don't, as that word ambassador, I'm not sure how you capture that we're there to be part of the community, representing the fact that we do represent them in the district, but that they can't come to us with every little thing. This happened in my school. We need to take care of it with the board member.
I completely understand what you're saying.
But I don't know how to capture that.
Yeah. So other board members' thoughts on this subject? How do you feel about? Is there other members with discomfort with this, with the sentence?
I would like to, I guess I would like to see what we can think of in terms of different for ambassadorship, because I still think we need to have a balance of knowing that they do elect us, so we need to also listen to them and give them a platform, but also understanding that, yes, they can't, like, we're also humans, we're not, like, it has to be a balance to make sure that we're not taking on too much, especially when we're as new board, incoming school board members and on the first year and different things like that. So yeah, I think we need to figure out that balance of what word.
Could it be instead, the board will interface with schools, the community, and the district?
Not will, may.
May.
If you use the word will, you know, then it makes it feel like a requirement of. Let's go back. We tried this as a board a few years back when we said, let's you know, be kind of the ambassadors, if you will, using that term, to school, and we tried to do that. And guess what it caused? It caused a lot of concern within the individual schools. because it's like, why are board members showing up? Why are board members asking these questions? What are the board members doing here? And it wasn't our intent at all. Our intent was just to be more connected. And
Right.
yet the feedback was more like fear. It's like, oh, that's not what we wanted.
I wonder,
I mean, I think Jess
Oh, yeah.
unmuted.
Well,
go ahead, Jess.
I put on a post-it, but I was just suggesting maybe instead of ambassadors, we're supporters, or, I'm trying to think of a better word for ambassadors. Because we do wanna support the schools, and we do wanna be, feed information both ways. We are kinda in that middle ground, so, and we wanna support the community, and we wanna support the schools and what's happening. Maybe promoters of the schools.
Advocates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what I'm hearing is that there's some discomfort with the idea of being an ambassador to buildings, and that in the past there's been some board members getting out of lane with that. Maybe some board member misbehavior, just causing some, but that the connection to community is really important. So I think I've heard enough that I think I can go back and strike, I think I'm just gonna make this number 4. I'm gonna say strike sentence and focus on community connection. Community connection.
Because in that advocacy as board members, and given that I've worked in several school districts with a wide array of boards, that their responsibilities is more to be as an advocate of, while they may have designated regions or schools, they still work holistically for the entire community, for the entire district, which would be
Right.
for the lack of that, as advocates, community, district, and schools. The chair will serve the spokesperson, because, again, ambassadors that oftentimes makes that disconnect with the administrators at the campuses, because they feel they're like, oh, well, they're coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus like, hey, I'm your advocate of your campus or of your region, and I just want to know and see how we can do it, what I can do to help with facilitate things.
Yeah. How do board members feel? I think did I capture your sentiment there? And how do board members feel about, striking this first sentence and really just focusing on the advocacy and community connection piece? So we don't have that entanglement with policy BG, which is the one that Pam is referencing.
Yep. Two thumbs
Okay.
up.
Awesome. Good work, folks. Okay. Number 5, the board will periodically.
Can I go back to 3 for just a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that supposed to be a comprehensive statement about what the chair does? I mean, it's got 2 categories of what the chair is doing. Keeping the other members informed and facilitating meetings, but the chair does a lot of other things as well. Why do we have a partial list of the chair activities or chair responsibilities? Do we even need it?
I mean, we can strike it, though, remember that this document is focusing attention. So it's not gonna be a comprehensive document. We can't fit everything into this.
Okay, right.
And so, if there's, we can calibrate this language.
Is that important then? And I kind of turn to you, Rose. Is this that important to you? I mean, that you're interacting with board members in certain ways?
Depends on how far you look at where the document might be seen. Right? If the document's internal, just to us as board members, it reads one way. If it's used as an external document, saying, by the way, this is how our board operates, and anybody can see it, it'll probably be up on our website, it would explain some of the main duties and responsibilities that our chair has. I go back to that thing with, with what Jess was saying. About authority and that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I assumed that
as we were creating this board operating agreement, we were going to share it with the greater community to give them a sense of who we are and what our board rules and responsibilities are. And so, I mean, as a person that's a community, a person that's coming outside from the community, I think that to hear the chair will keep members informed of relative board logistics, you know, understanding, giving them a summary of what the chair is supposed to do. If they want to learn more about all of the chair's things and different things like that, they can always set up a time to talk with the chair. But I think by giving them a summary and letting them know that this is not a comprehensive, like, thing of all the duties of the chair, and if you want to learn that, you can talk to them and give them that option. But I think that that is very crucial for them to at least know what their, you know, their person that's that was, you know, elected into that position is doing.
There is a policy that enumerates the powers of board leadership.
It's very comprehensive.
And I mean, we could put a reference to that policy. I don't
Yeah.
know it off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
it would be a simple matter to do that. Would that be
I think
helpful?
above your topic, site headings is would be in reference to board policies.
Exactly.
Because people need to know that there is the governing document.
Yeah, exactly.
And the rest of these are just enumerating some of the things we really want ourselves to be reminded of, and what we may, if we're doing it as suggested, as Sarah was suggesting, with something that's public, that we would have this. Because sometimes it's like, oh, well, you're the chair.
Yeah.
You're the chair.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, well, I just facilitate meetings. I'm the chair, but not the chair.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, then you have an opportunity to go, woo-hoo.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, because I think chairs get elevated to having more
Power than
power
they
or
actually.
whatever, and they
Yeah.
don't. They just keep the meetings going. And tell us when meeting changes, right?
Yep.
Keep us going, what we're supposed to do. So,
Chair responsibilities include keeping members informed.
Mhm.
Just to highlight that it's not.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, good job.
Three. Yeah. Great. You feeling good about that? Good, okay. And we did 4, on to 5. Zooming in so we can actually see it. The board will periodically review their own performance in addition to the evaluation of the superintendent in tracking the progress of the district. So this is your commitment to policy BK.
And track. No, sorry, English teacher.
Oh, yeah, did I? No.
Yes. Review, evaluate, and track.
There we go, thank you.
But it also needs to be and evaluate, or
Yep, evaluate.
Take that in addition to evaluate this, review their own performance.
In addition to.
Evaluate the superintendent and track the progress. Right?
Yeah.
Or new statements.
Oh, and strike. This is 5. Strike. In addition to the, yeah, and then add 8. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I know what I'm telling myself. Okay. Any other feedback on 5? Going once? Going twice? All right. I don't know what we did there, but next one is operations. How we operate and make decisions. Let me get rid of this so I can make it bigger. Okay, we're on to 6. Meetings start and end on time and members arrive prepared to fully participate. I don't think this is couched in in policy, but it's certainly a best practice for effective meetings. Research shows that boards that meet for longer than 3 hours tend to have lower student outcomes.
Makes sense.
Marathon meetings are not good for board work, and no good board work happens after 9 p.m.
No.
That's me. There's no research validating it. That's just my personal observation.
That implies that, you know, we do have in policy that we do not go beyond 10 p.m. Without vote. So we can't go beyond 10 p.m. unless we agree to go.
Right. And of course, you know, operational necessity aside, in saying that, if your district team needs the board to make a decision on something, and the board's got to burn the midnight oil, then you burn the midnight oil.
One of the things that I'm concerned about is the new, and I'm not pointing at our IT people, but I'm pointing at our IT. Our IT process now is an additional challenge that we're addressing because of the new rule. And if you're not here 15 minutes early, you're not getting all of the stuff. Now we have all the stuff to make sure our mics are working, our computers are on, whether or not we're in Zoom or not in Zoom. So that meeting starting time is we're not starting at 6:30. Board members should be here
15 minutes early.
15 minutes early because of technology more than anything else. Because one of us is going to have to go down or not work. And it gives our IT people who are trying to help us present ourselves to the public on time, an opportunity to correct that so that we can get started. And we haven't had a meeting start on time for probably 2 years because of all the tech things. So I would like to suggest that maybe it's not written, but because the technology needs that we need to be here as board members early to get our stuff organized and help our staff.
I think that if that's how we feel, then I feel like it should be reflected in here.
Well, that's how
Yeah.
I feel, because I feel like that pressure is kind of there.
Don't do that.
And it's a technology, and more than anything else, it oftentimes is a technology-driven concern.
I'll just go on record and say I agree that you should be trying, I try to get there early enough to get everything set up.
And if you can't, I think it's also another thing to add. If you can't make it, or you're having, because things do come up, we do have personal things, just communicate with that with us via email, text, board member, and then they can say it. But just make sure you have that communication as well too, because things do come up. So.
Or people aren't left hanging.
Exactly.
Where is so-and-so?
Exactly.
Or do we know what so-and-so's doing?
And so maybe start and in the time members arrive 15 minutes early to ensure preparation and participation. Oh, you already got some. Perfect.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, kind of.
I think that'll just help everybody feel like we'll be ready. Besides, we have to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Good one. Meeting start and end on time, and we're going to kind of show up a little bit early. The other, also on the end time, because we have technical staff supporting and now teams of people supporting our meetings, it's not just the superintendent and board secretary that, because I know that you probably structure your agendas to get staff and allow them to go home. So we put them at the front of the agenda so that they can go home because they have to open buildings and be in classrooms and work the next day. We're doing the same thing with our IT professionals as well. They have to be there to support us, but they have to get up in the morning and go to work as well and support the district. So we just want to be mindful of that.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on number 6? Agenda items are board work and are aligned to board goals and district strategic priorities.
What does it mean that agenda items are board work?
So we're not going to bring, it needs to be applicable board work. So there are boards who put things on their agendas that are not board work. Case in point, I was just with a
Yeah.
board that they had an item on the previous agenda, about their gym floor. And that they were essentially harassing their superintendent about the gym floor, that had been a problem with the gym floor, it has to be replaced. And they are receiving a lot of input from the community, because the community is upset about it. It's a very small town. And so they, in turn, are engaging their superintendent in a public meeting. Superintendent is undergoing the operational processes to address the issue, but they can continually bring it up. It's not board work. At the end of the day, there's no action for the board to take on it. They just want to talk about an issue that is essentially operational, because they're taking flack from the community.
Maybe it would make more sense to say agenda items are limited to board work. Or,
Yeah? So
Yeah.
You have strategic, you're doing strategic, you have priorities. We have these strategic priorities. Those are an important lens for the board. It allows us to focus our attention on what we know works, because if we do it right, we've developed those priorities with the support of our staff, our experts. They've helped us hone in on what are those items within, student achievement, student wellness, facilities. And so we know that these things are aligned, that if we work on these priorities, we are going to improve student outcomes. But boards get pulled in lots of different directions. And so it's important that the board develop the skill of strategic abandonment, using your strategic priorities as a lens to focus on the things that are important, that are going to impact kids, and not get distracted about things like gym floors that's being addressed. And yes, I'm not saying that the board shouldn't have informed oversight of the gym floor, replacement, but it's not something that the board needs to be putting on every agenda, or even every other agenda. And we're talking about a project that's going to unfold over the course of a year. So the superintendent will bring back reports on that, when there's things to share.
Yeah.
And so this board needs to then, case in point, in their boardroom, they had their strategic priorities on the wall. But they weren't using it as a lens to say, we're taking flack from the community, but in this situation, we're gonna be that protective wall around the district, and we'll take the heat, because that's our job, we're the politicians, we'll take the heat, and we're gonna let our district staff focus on kids. Because, your district staff are starting the school year. Literally, I had this meeting on Monday. So this is, really current, and the staff are trying to focus on getting school started, but instead they're chasing their tail, or at least the superintendent's chasing his tail, worrying about a gym floor that he can't replace because there isn't a supply chain to support the project. Not a good place to be.
So I understand that, I'm just wondering if there is a way to say it that makes it clear, because if this is something
Yeah.
that's available to the public, what did you propose, Rose?
just limited to, agenda items are limited to board work. Because I do feel like, last year, I know people were coming to me asking about, what's your decision gonna be on masks? And what's your asking those kinds of questions. So if we can say that agenda items, and maybe it's not limited, maybe that's too restrictive of a word, but.
Agenda items are legitimate board work, or does that make it a little bit too?
Yeah, limit. I kind of wordsmith something here. Agenda items are limited matters actionable for the board and support informed oversight.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
So it's either something that you can do, and if it's not something you can do, why are you talking about it?
Exactly.
Or is it supporting informed oversight?
Yeah.
So are you receiving information from your district staff that supports your strategic priorities? And then I'll build that strategic priorities piece in there.
That's good, thank you.
No, thank you. One of the.
That's gonna be important.
in our policies, we already have that, you know, board members can put things on the agenda if you
Mhm.
get 3 or more board members. Because if the chair is saying, no, I'm not, and it's important to board. But then the chair will still be able to say, wait a minute, then you tell me where it aligns. Because, you know, if a board, if 3 or 4 members get concerned about the floor, right, and say, I need it on the agenda, this at least allows the chair to say, and it doesn't fit.
Well, it allows the board, I mean, these are your norms, these are your
That we all
expectations for
agreed
yourselves.
upon.
So if you have 3 members saying, hey, we want to talk about this, but it's not board work, you know, the board can say, well, under our norms, we don't waste our time. How often do you guys meet?
Twice a month.
Twice a month, so about 3 hours at a time? So you spend 72 hours on school governance in a year. Probably not even that, because you probably don't meet as often in summer. You miss a couple of meetings in the summer. 72 hours. Not even 2 weeks of work on school governance. So I say that, and that is not to diminish the actual work that you do. Yes, I know you're spending at least 10 to 15 hours outside of meetings, you know, a week,
Yeah.
prepping and doing and being engaged in the community. I'm not diminishing your board work. What I'm saying is that your board only has a very limited, finite amount of time where you meet together to do this work together. And so you want to be very, very judicious in your use of that time. Anything else on 7? This is great. And I just got to say, as a trainer and as your colleague in another community, I really appreciate this because I learn from the input that as you guys process this, I'm learning too. And then I get to take that wisdom to other districts. Okay, number 8, make decisions only at properly called meetings and take such action with one board voice. I'm sorry, I've got a thing selected here. I've got any calibration on that?
Does it allow space for disagreement to happen in the meeting while we're debating?
Yeah, I mean, at OSBA, we have this saying that the board needs to be unified but not uniform.
Okay.
That when a board makes a decision, that decision is binding, and that even though I'm in the minority, I accept that decision and we move on. And I may act to, you know, try to advance my position on that issue down the road, but I accept that decision in the moment. I don't know if you would like to add that, or?
No, I think that for me it was, I was thinking more broadly but I think that when you say take such action, I think that's the distinguishing fact there for that one board voice. I was just wanting to make sure that there was still space for folks to disagree.
One more comment on that it's important that if you are in the dissent, that if you're intending to vote no on a particular decision, it's important that during discussion or debate that you surface that concern. The whole point of having boards or having groups of people make decisions is, the reality is, if we could get good decisions out of one person, we would do it that way. It would be easier. You'd just have a superintendent. But we do it with groups because we get better decisions, because each of us comes with a different set of experiences and values, and so we check each other's blind spots. So Rose may, you know, if she's in the dissent on a particular issue, having her surface that will check my blind spot that, you know, I didn't think about that. You know, and so it's important that you surface that. But then, you know, at the end of the day, you support the board. Okay, number 9, the board will have a clear definition of equity and use it as a lens in its decision-making, emphasizing and elevating student voice. I don't know if you have an equity lens that you use. Good. So this is just elevating that and pulling it front and center. There's lots of districts that have, or boards that have, or districts and boards that have equity lenses, or, you know, a document that's an equity lens, but in operation, they don't often get used.
Is there a way similar to earlier how we were gonna maybe link a policy to an item up above? Can we do that here too?
For the
and
equity
say,
Oh,
you know, to find
keep
the
doing
equity,
that.
you know,
You're talking about for the equity lens?
Yeah, I mean,
like just
at the
a
very
link
least.
to where it is.
Yeah.
So
At
that
the-
people can find it.
At the very least, 9, link to policy, it's JBB, which is educational equity, and all students belong is ACB, is that right? I'm doing good, GCCB, thank you, oh, cool. I didn't know
I don't know.
GCCB, that's for staff? Awesome.
Good.
So I'm wondering,
Yeah.
our equity policy doesn't have our specific equity lens questions that we use, but we have that in a separate document. We also, if that
Yeah.
helps.
Should be read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be
Okay,
great.
Thanks, okay.
Okay. Any changes to 9 other than, making those references to policy? And I mean, you could literally link in this document, when I give it to Pam, she can actually put the live links into the document, so when board members or staff or the community go in and look at this document, they can click on it and go to that. That would be really cool.
There's a suggested change on
Yeah, you can put it in, oh, I see.
8. I didn't.
8, remove takes such act and replace with support decisions. 8.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That, I think that addresses what Rose was saying.
Okay.
So decisions made irrespective of whether everybody agreed, but then decisions.
And support decisions with the one board voice. Got it. Good one.
That's great.
Okay, number 10, strive to ensure there are no surprises and conduct board work with care and respect. I borrow this, there's 2 pieces to this. There's the no surprises clause, and then this other one, conduct board work with care and respect. I borrow from the SIUS Law Governance Handbook, and they have a whole commitment to just conducting their board work with care and respect. I really love that turn of phrase and using that as an anchoring value for the board. That even though we may disagree, and maybe even disagree stridently, that if we conduct it with care and respect, we can't go too far wrong, that, we're gonna find our way through that issue. Okay. I am noting the time. People were arriving at 10. It is now 11:42, and we're kind of at a pause point here. Do we want to take a break?
Yeah, sure. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, so let's pause here. Jess, we're taking a break. Yeah, 5-10 minutes, whenever people come back, we'll keep hammering through this. We're moving up nice and quick.
So I got the audio form. Somebody fill out.
Yeah, I think.
We are coming back from break.
Do we have Jess?
Do we have Jess in the room? All right, back in session.
All right, he's there. Okay, moving on. Last section of the board operating agreement. Okay. Is that you moving my doc? That's okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock it. There, now it won't move around. I should have done that. If I was a good facilitator, I would have locked all the elements on the thing before now. But, okay, so, number 11, communicate directly with the superintendent when operational information is needed or a question arises. Thoughts on this one?
What do you think?
Yeah. No, Jess has a question.
Oh, go ahead. Jess.
Okay.
Yeah, I was curious. I didn't want to necessarily insert myself, but I think it would be helpful to, just as far as like the role, taking myself out of it, like for that role to have information too.
That was going to be what I
Yeah.
figured Jess was going to ask that, so that was the same thing about including the chair or
Yeah.
not. And I would say something else as far as how I respond to that information request, but I think that may show up in the board superintendent operating agreements.
Well, question.
Yeah.
If I have a question, I don't need to, you know, I can address it to James. If James feels like it's necessary to, to make sure that Rose is made aware of it, then that's fine too. But there might be just say, hey, well, very specifically, this reunion situation. I didn't include Rose in the communication. I'm saying, hey, what do we do about these kind of things? And I just needed your feedback and input. But it,
Always use the word discretion.
yeah, because it didn't.
At
it
the
doesn't always
discretion.
include,
Yeah.
Right? It's just
Yeah.
sometimes a question I have for.
Yeah.
And then you can help be the judge of whether
Yeah.
we should loop me in.
Yeah, and I don't have a feeling either way on it. It's really what the board
Yeah.
prefers, but I know that there's been some questions as far as whether the chair should be included or not, and I think people are trying to, get the bone out of the operation thing without hitting the
Yeah.
on the side.
Yeah.
But, to me, I think it's a good discussion because if it's something that I feel like I need to communicate with the chair, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just respond to the question. I don't see a reason to add more process. And
Agreed.
Yeah. I don't know if we wanted to put that, communication directly with superintendent, with the discretion if they need to contact or communicate with the board chair. I don't know if that needs to be in there, but if we were thinking of a word, I know discretion is.
Could we put it maybe, some of this is that there's some of these things are also covered later on.
Yeah.
So hold it as a thought and see if it's covered.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know if it is or isn't,
Okay.
honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. And
But
so,
not including, I don't think it needs to say that they'll include the board chair.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why am I bothering Rose with some question?
Exactly.
if applicable, and and who makes that determination, I guess is the question.
I think the superintendent.
Superintendent, yeah.
So we're not going to include the board chair initially?
No. No.
Okay, so then I'm gonna delete that. Oh, no, I want the whole thing deleted. Delete. Okay. So, and another point I want to make on this one is that this is an incidental request for information that is not going to place a substantive demand on staff. So if Director Adams asks for, I want the last 20 years of discipline data disaggregated by race, ethnicity, that's a big ask.
Yeah.
And that's something, and I'm sure that you have this in policy, that information requests of substance are going to be approved by the board.
Yeah.
Because that information shouldn't just go to me, it should go to the whole board.
I
And-
distinguish between information and data requests.
Yeah.
I consider what you used to use a data request, which implies you're compiling information and
Right.
doing work actually to respond.
Right.
But it doesn't need to be narrowed to data requests, it's staff time.
Right.
If it has an impact
Mhm.
on staff, then that has to go through.
Through the board, then the board chair.
Yeah, board chair and, I mean, we already have the policy that covers that, actually.
So it may not be.
Yeah, we do have policy that handles it, but if you want to bring attention to it.
And I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, or, you know, I don't know if that needs to be mentioned here. Do you board members, you know, this is something, if there's an issue, or if the board has had an issue with members making information requests that are onerous on staff, then,
It hasn't, I mean, sometimes we don't know the impact of our request as well. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe we could do data about that, and then, you know, James's eyebrows go up. It's like, oh, why, that's something that we should be asking, because that's gonna be, the information that we would glean from that doesn't affect what our, you know, number one part of who we are and what we do. It was just a curiosity, but we didn't know that curiosity would create X amount of staff time.
Yeah.
And we didn't mean for that. I mean, I know that we've, at times.
Yep.
I think we should, when it comes to like data and those types of requests, I think there should be like, you should understand, because of the amount of information that it takes to correlate, that there's going to be like a 3 to 5 day wait, or, you know, for them to gather the information. I just want to make sure that we still have access to that information when we ask for it, but also understanding that like that is staff time, like that is work, and so working with them to say, hey, can I get to you this within the week or something like that, you know, and that comes with communicating and working and seeing where people's capacities are at right now too.
So would the board appreciate a mention here that information requests that allocate substantive use of staff time will be approved by the board?
That's
By
fine.
the board or just?
Or,
by the chair?
yeah.
Yeah, I have strong feelings on that subject.
Well, because the chair.
I think it should be the whole board.
Yeah.
The board, the superintendent doesn't work for the chair. The superintendent works for the board.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And so,
yeah. So I think it should be the whole board,
yeah. Okay, so let's.
just to create that transparency and stuff.
And
yeah.
so that can happen offline or not, and the board just make a decision?
I'm sure if they can just email us all in a thing, and we can come to a conclusion right there.
But wouldn't it just end up as an agenda item?
Should.
Depending on how far out or, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could come up with a lot of, I'm just looking at what other boards have been doing,
Mm-hmm.
which is not fun. What's been happening around the state, and the kind of stuff they're putting their staff through. And it's hoop jumping for no reason, and really outside of the scope of really what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So, what we can do to protect that, at least with the whole board, you have the whole board being rogue,
Yeah,
poor
just-
superintendent's in trouble anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
But at least the whole board.
Okay, moving on to number 12. Looks like we have an edit here. Edit and instead,
So at the end, for service in and outside the boardroom, so it's just small
oh,
typo.
okay, I'll find it. The board leadership will be responsive and ensure that members have equal and adequate information to be prepared for service in and, oh, I got it, yeah, thank you. In and outside of the bedroom. Yes. So, this is just, yeah, it's just following up on the previous mention. 13, any other thoughts on 12? Feeling good about that? Great. 13, the chair responds to group email sent to the board. Thereafter, board members may individually respond.
That's news to
Can
me.
we have an example of that, please?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jess is in there.
I guess.
Yeah, Jess, what's up?
On 13, I read it a bunch of times, board members may individually respond after the chair, like who am I responding to?
So, So if an email comes to the board, Dear Centennial Board, I feel very strongly about the missing gym floor, and I think it should be replaced soon because it's impacting kids. Then the chair is going to acknowledge, at the very least, acknowledge receipt of that email. I think in Oregon, there is a strong expectation that members of the public will have their emails responded to.
Yes.
I think the largest districts might be able to slide out of that. PPS, maybe Salem Kaiser, Beaverton. Those guys might be able to sidestep it, but I think the rest of us, our constituents expect us to respond.
We're getting robo emails though.
Yeah.
That's really the
Well,
only.
and then that falls to the chair to filter that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if
because
you're
that's
getting-
been the majority.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I think I've gotten like one independent type email.
Well, and any good chair is going to have their standard response for, thank you for your email, the board appreciates your input. If you have further questions, blah, blah, blah.
So I actually called the company that is sending those robocalls because the address of the people are oftentimes not even in our district. And they said that it's actually county-based. And so if somebody in PPS is sending that, then we're getting the email. Anybody in Multnomah County, any school district in Multnomah County board is getting the same robo email regardless of where the person originates it from. And there's not much that they can do about that, was their response.
And I want to clarify, are these marketing emails or are these
No.
advocacy?
No.
These are advocacy emails?
Yeah.
You have two right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just haven't even mentioned.
And they often have nothing to do with, like, we've already voted on not having masks, and it's still people being like, unmask us, like.
Or a lot of the things has to do with right now, what was it recently? Because they change it up depending on what those folks wanted to do. So like not only was there the mask one, there was also one where they were talking about SROs.
Yeah.
And then they were talking about
Attending school in person.
exactly. After we already attended, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So-
So they clearly aren't connected with our.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't respond to those unless I'll pay attention to where the address is from, and if it
Exactly.
is actually, it hasn't been yet somebody in our district.
Yeah.
So.
So when I
but-
say that, we acknowledge receipt, we're talking about acknowledging receipt from human beings.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly.
computers. Yeah, so returning back to Jess's question, so when the board receives an email, I'm addressing the whole board, the spokesperson for the board, the chair, responds.
Yeah.
But thereafter, board members can engage individually, in whatever capacity. So you have initiate one-on-one correspondence with that constituent for whatever reason. Because each of you is an individual elected official and you're welcome to interact with the public.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're welcome to interact with the public as a member of a 7-person board.
Correct.
Well, I'll look into it, or I'll take care of that, or, you're right. Well, that sets us up. So I'm concerned about thereafter board members may individually respond with something more than just, acknowledging
Thank you
that
for
it's,
your
yeah,
input.
thank you
This is
for
an
it.
important issue or something.
We had an issue with misinformation about our budget. And the union took it on and had every member of the union send us, emails, et cetera, et cetera. And if we individually been responding to all of that, we could have been all over the map in terms of our response. And what the board did at that time was, we knew they were acting on misinformation. And so, we developed, and James can speak to that too, because he helped develop it. There's, we had a collective response that we agreed would go, because they were doing the basic robo email, right? The union had said, tell your board this, and it was the same message over and over and over and over again. So responding individually wasn't anything that individual board members took on. The board chair responded to make sure that it was acknowledged each individual one was acknowledged, but having every board member acknowledge each individual in it's not a robocall, but I don't know, call to action maybe is something that's saying, in a call to action situation, I don't know that it's appropriate for individual board members to
So
pick
this,
up that rope.
so this really comes down to a can or should question. You can respond. Should you respond as a member of a unified board? I think your advice, Pam, is spot on. No, I'm not gonna respond to that. The board chair addressed that, I'm not. That's why.
It says may individually respond, so that's what you got with that.
Or maybe a constituent expresses an issue, and as an individual board member, I want to engage with that parent and get a little more detail and have a deeper understanding of that lived experience of that family or that kiddo. And so I can follow up on that and have that and go get coffee and, so that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Good conversation.
I like that, because the thing is like, one of the things that we also have to remember, again, that we are elected officials, but we also have to, and this goes down to making sure that the board members are onboarded correctly on what power they have on. And I like that, and like what you put out was one of the things is that, like, how I like to individually respond is to meet with them to understand where their expertise is from, or where their current lived experiences and what they're having to go through. I'm not promising anything, because I'm only one person on the board.
Right.
And I'm also not promising anything because that there's so many, as much as I hate to say it, there's so much like red tape and then crosshairs and intersectional things that we also have to think about and put into context. The reason why I would individually respond to that person is so I can get and take that information with me to go on to cohesively help and see what we can come across and do as when we have that discussion and it's brought up to us at the meetings. And echo these different aspects. But I think that it is going to be, I like how it is currently right now. The chair responds to the group email sent to the board, therefore, or maybe we take out the therefore. Maybe we say that, and then board members at their discretion, again, knowing as if they've been properly onboarded, what they're able to do, reach out to the individual, have a discussion. It's about building relationships as well too. And I know that is something that, again, that's a balance. Everything's a balance. Like, that's just life. But knowing that, but by not not having the option to be able to individually respond, if we feel something like we want to better that relationship that's being produced right now, I think that would do us a disservice of growing, not only as leaders, and seeing how folks' lived experience are being worked through in different ways, but also giving us the chance to build a better relationship with those folks that might not understand all of the details and things that we know that are going through. Yeah.
So what do you do? Here's my question though. To me, it goes back to the no surprises. Somebody contacts me and tells me something, I immediately call the superintendent. And I say, by the way, there's a concern, something's happened, or something wasn't addressed well, or whatever it was. But the superintendent knows. This doesn't tell me that would also be my responsibility in terms of communicating. Because if I come to the board meeting and say, oh, by the way, I want to talk about the playground at such and such, because I've heard 3 parents say that there's bullying going on, and I want that on the agenda, and our superintendent has no idea what I'm talking about. That's the concern that I have about the individual response, because it's like a gotcha.
Yeah.
So what I put in there, and I think that what we need to know also for this process is that the superintendent is also on that board email, so he's
Exactly.
seeing all of the things that are coming in as well. But I wonder if thereafter, board members may individually respond with reply all, so that we're like, maybe like the first time you reach out, or like, you know, if you're wanting to further engage with a constituent.
David is shaking his head.
It's a quorum issue.
Is it?
You can't
Yeah.
rely on all on an
You can't
email.
yeah.
Then we are then all having a board discussion.
Exactly.
Correct.
So, but if I'm gonna respond to the group email,
So you're responding to the person who sent it
Individual.
to you, and you're sending it out, and yes, you will reply all, so your colleagues can see that you have addressed the email.
okay, and so, but then it would have to be, they would reach out individually.
And then they would do so individually. Now, Pam is spot on. If it pertains to a complaint and policy KL is in play, then absolutely superintendent needs to know about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, we could include something pertaining to that, but I mean, board members need to understand that. And that's true of any conversation that you have, whether it's in email, in the grocery store, on Facebook.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. You're gonna process that, potential complaint.
And I think that, again, that goes back to making sure that the onboarding process for incoming board members has that information in there. We all know that, I mean, I've been lucky that I have been in leadership, but that's not for everyone. We're talking about regular community members coming in onto board positions. That means there needs to be leadership development. That means there needs to be ongoing check-ins with the new board members. And the question I think that we also need to ask is who is going to be doing that because of staff capacity for the district, and who does that fall under? But that's for a bigger question, but and a larger conversation. But I do think that that goes again back into making sure that board members are adequately trained on how to respond in leadership and not get caught up in the, because we all, like, we're humans, we all have emotions. So not to get caught up in that and to, come at it from very, again, it's the balance of the emotional side, but also the rational, logical, and what you can do in the capacity that you are in. So, yeah.
So,
This goes further out though, right? Because we're talking about that.
Yeah.
So thereafter, board members may individually respond and inform the superintendent of such response.
Yeah.
And the way we give these, it doesn't mean we necessarily have to copy. If it was an email,
Yeah.
we wouldn't necessarily have to copy, or we could forward what we said later or something. But putting on us as communicating to our superintendent should never be blindsided by anything that's going on.
That's about having clear cut communication throughout the board. So that means if you know that you're going to have a meeting with somebody in the community, letting your superintendent know, hey, I'm going to be remember that group message that we had? That's about just communication in general.
Yeah, so I'm meeting with so-and-so and I'll let you know what's
Exactly.
up. I think it's important that the public also knows that we are responsible to making sure that the leader of the district is aware of the concerns that are brought to us as individuals. I mean, we had a test of that. We had a test of that with the whole athletics situation that we had earlier on this year.
Yep.
Right? And if we had just kept that all just bottled up and then spewed it in a board meeting, the superintendent is like,
Exactly.
do you want me to respond in public
Yep.
right now, or do you want me to have a thought process about this and then, find out what's going on?
Exactly.
So something has to be there that we will.
So I added, I'm suggesting that add an additional sentence here. Members will keep the superintendent in the chair of emergent issues.
Great.
Sounds good. Great.
And that is written broad, so it's like anything that's going on. You can.
Lunch is here and hot. If people want to individually get up and dish themselves up. Yep.
Yep, yep, yep. Okay, 14, here we go. Board members will communicate with one another should an issue or problem develop between them.
Yep.
And do so with care and respect.
Exactly. That's what being an adult is.
Can I throw something in there, though?
Yes, ma'am.
We had a training with your counterpart,
Mhm.
Kristen.
Yeah.
And she reminded us that go out in the parking lot, y'all all get together and talk to each other. Suddenly, it looks like you're having a meeting.
The after meeting, yes.
Yeah, a meeting after the meeting. So when that happens, should he know? Should somebody? I don't know. Just so communication is clear. Hey, so-and-so and I kind of butted heads on XYZ. We got together, we worked it out.
So.
Just a thought.
No, that's a really important topic. First, let's address the after meeting and quorums. So you can't, if 4 of you cannot hang out in the parking lot and discuss, even though we'd love to do it, because we're all, let's face it, everybody in this room is passionate about education. We love talking about it, right?
You can't hang out in the parking lot and talk about your car. If, not really, not if everybody, I mean, if somebody drives by.
But we did.
So-
It was a beautiful car, and I did not pull that example because of that.
No, it was fun.
So for a meeting to occur, there needs to be a quorum of the board, and the individuals convened need to be discussing district business, or deliberating, or collecting information on which to deliberate. Okay.
So we could talk about my car.
So, technically speaking, 4 or more of you could get together and talk about Pam's car. And there's a great example. In Corvallis, we have a public schools foundation. Do you guys have a public schools foundation? Yeah. We have a public schools foundation, and they do a fundraiser every year. And the whole school board shows up. Because, I mean, you kind of have to, right? And so we all 7 of us are in the room. But we are always careful to ensure that we don't have the situation that Pam is surfacing. We always convene, get together as 3 or less, because of course, we're colleagues on the board, we're gonna get together and chat, right? Yeah. But we're always, if the 4th one comes up, someone has to pop off, and that's not because we're actually discussing district business. No. We're not. It's not a public meeting.
Exactly.
We're worried about the optics.
Okay.
It's like, what are those board members doing there?
Yeah.
They're talking about something. So it's more optics. So you have to be discussing district business for that, to have a public meeting, okay? Where were we? We were on so that's the after meeting. What was the second piece? I lost the second piece. Oh.
Letting the superintendent know if there's.
Okay, so interpersonal issues. That's what this is really talking about. Oh, the second piece is, whose responsibility is it to deal with behavioral issues on the board?
The chair.
Who said it?
I said it.
You said it, and you're
The
right.
reason why I said it is because the 2 people that are maybe in the conflict aren't adequate place or position where they can work it out. And the chair has that responsibility to say, hey, what can we do? Because we need this board to work cooperatively together, and you're having problems and we can see it, and what can we do to smooth that? Because again, I look at other boards and what happens happening in other situations, and board members resigning and all that controversy going on in a public situation. It's the board chair, unless the board chair's
Part of it.
part of it.
But, I mean, the board chair is the facilitator of the body.
Yeah.
Both in the meeting and outside. And so, yes, the chair is responsible for addressing interpersonal conflict that occurs on the board. And it happens. It happens. But we try to do that in private whenever we can. And so 2 board members can get together and chat about an issue. That's fine. That's legal. You're not violating the law by doing that. You don't have a quorum.
Nope.
You can even discuss district business with just 2 of you, because that will be a public meeting. That's fine. The key point here is it's not the superintendent's problem. Now, the superintendent may be a coach, but it is not the superintendent's problem to address. It's the board's problem. Now, the chair or the individuals in conflict may fail to resolve the issue. At which point, if it gets in the board's way of conducting its business, it then becomes board work. And then we need to bring that into a public meeting. Okay?
Not to exactly disagree, but there is another step, and that is having somebody else, not the superintendent, not anybody within the district, but OSBA to facilitate that communication process.
Could.
To help people bridge the gap. I mean, it's another stopgap kind of a measure before you go to the public situation. You two get along,
Yeah.
right? Type of situation, but you could bring those two
Yeah.
individuals with a mediator, a facilitator, a person that they are not feeling like they're being judged by this, the chair. And OSBA has
Yeah.
been able to do that in those kind of situations, which is appreciated that we have somebody, third party to.
You're carrying disinterested third party, yes. So yes, good point. Yes. Okay, anything else on 14? Are we good? Then go get food. And I'll switch us over to the board superintendent operating agreement.
What's Jess gonna eat?
I love the kale field in his background.
I mean, don't. Tater tot bar and everything.
Those tater tots are
Tater
calling
tot
me.
bar. My inner child just got really happy.
Okay, so the first thing we, first thing we need to check in on here, so we are working on the board superintendent. So we just completed feedback on the board operating agreement that pertains just to board members. This is now the, and so the board operator has really 3 domains of relationships that we work with. And we just worked with the board to board or within the board relationship. Next one is board and superintendent. And the other one that we're not going to talk about as an operating agreement, interesting that we don't do that, is board community. But it's an important relationship for the board. But we're not going to talk about that today. So, but this one is really important because a board without a superintendent is like King Arthur without Excalibur. You're just a group of angry people because you can't do anything because we have no operational capacity. So the superintendent is crucially important to a board. Okay, so this is the purpose statement at the top of the board superintendent operating agreement. I'll read it and then you can opine on it here. The Board of Directors is the educational policy-making body of the Centennial School District. To effectively meet the system's challenges, the school board and superintendent must function together as a leadership team. To ensure unity among team members, effective group agreements must be in place. The following are the group agreements for the board and superintendent. Any questions, comments, or suggestions for that?
Why does it say educational policy as distinguished from what?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Can we just drop that word?
Yes, I'm okay with that. Done. Anything else? Jess, are you with us? I want to make sure you're connected. Can anybody see Jess, or I'm not seeing him on my thumbnail here.
I need to send him a quick text and ask him to join us.
Rejoin.
Yeah, if you would.
If he, okay. Thank you, Pam. Okay, hearing nothing else on the purpose, we'll move on. Okay, first part is collaborative governance. No one took any umbrage with the board operating agreement. The chunks, the buckets that were on there, I mean, if we, I need to lock this. Hold on, Pam, don't move it anymore.
Oh, am I sorry? I'm sorry.
That's okay, no, I'm gonna lock it down. There we go, I locked it. No, let me back up here. Yeah, so, I mean, let's take a bird's eye view of this. So, I mean, this was broken up into board roles and responsibilities, how we operate and make decisions, and then how we communicate. That was a decision that I made for you. And I just want to do a quick check-in. Does anybody have any difficulty with those buckets as we went through it? Nobody spoke up. And so here again, I have made some decisions for you. So yeah, this is broken up into collaborative governance, if you can see that. Collaborative governance, communication agreements, and board expectations of the superintendent, and then superintendent expectations of the board. So, coming back to collaborative governance here, let me zoom in and move this around, but that's okay, because we can just put our notes wherever.
Vince,
Yeah,
Rose stepped out
okay.
to take a call from Erica, who's not here, and I'm not sure if Jess is here, so I'm wondering.
Okay, we'll pause.
Jess is still on, but I don't know if he knows we're back. So I sent him a text.
And he might have stepped away.
But we still have a quorum.
Yeah, we can continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, under collaborative governance, number 1, members of the board and superintendent shall work together as a team, modeling lifelong learning and collaboration. Any adjustments? Comments? Questions about that? Great. Okay, I got one. I think there's 2 that this is the second one that I sailed through.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2, board members shall recognize and respect the superintendent's responsibility to manage the school district and to direct employees in district and school matters. As I read that, I'm like, is there a way that I can make that a little more compact, but any difficulties with that?
That's great.
Okay.
Keep moving.
Oh, I'm 2-0 on that. That's great. Okay, board members shall give careful consideration, listening to all perspectives, to all issues brought to the board by individuals and district leadership.
Example?
Example of something that you should give.
Listening to all perspectives, to all issues brought to the board by individuals. Is individuals and district leadership, individuals as in staff or individuals as in anybody?
Community.
Community.
I think that's intended
Okay.
to be interpreted broadly.
Yeah, I think that we talked about how we respond to those things, so I think that this makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Any, well, I can't believe I'm getting off this light. Okay. The board shall make decisions only at properly called meetings. Board members recognize that individual members have no authority to take individual action in policy or district and school administrative matters. I think I could tighten up some of the grammar here, but, or the way that's written. Unless so authorized by a board vote. So yes, of course, the board can deputize any member to take an action. I'm gonna have to put have my light flash on my phone because I miss calls and that is like, it just like grabs your attention abruptly. It's, no, it's okay. It's like.
It needs to flash, vibrate, and sound.
That is awesome. Okay. I think that this,
I'm going to ask about something, Vince, and then you tell me if it's maybe not in collaborative governance, maybe it's in communication. Community members, staff, whomever can come to a board meeting, bring public input, and make their input.
yes, ma'am.
But that is only their input and their point of view at this time in this moment with the information that they have.
Correct.
We may have additional information, or we may not have any information. So we may be curious about it. But having dialogue with individuals who come to the board during public comment it doesn't allow for the district, perception or opinion or fact checking. So this is always a kind of a weird situation, because they come to us and they sit in front of us and they're making comment, and you want to acknowledge, their concern, but we can't get into a give and take because we don't have the district perspective necessarily at that point in time.
You're talking about public comment.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's under collaborative governance or communication. I'm not sure where we should, where we should talk about it, but we need to listen, but we also need to know that we aren't now going to arbitrate it just because an individual came in front of us and brought it up to our attention.
I think it's addressed here in number 3. I mean, and it really, I think, speaking to your point that, just because a person comes to the board and speaks on an issue and provides their perspective, doesn't mean that the board is fully informed on that issue. And I think that's this listening to all perspectives. Mm-hmm. It's asking the board to acknowledge that while this individual may be opining on this issue, that there are other voices that need to be heard. And that would include staff in the interpretation of our education professionals. How are you feeling about that?
Is that enough? Well, again, going back to this as a document that can be read by the public, I think sometimes the public comes and thinking they're gonna get to dialogue with this. And it's not a time of dialogue because I only have a portion of the story from the perspective of an individual who even might be represented. But I have not necessarily given the same amount of time to the superintendent or staff who may be affected. It's that we're supposed to listen carefully to all perspectives, but we don't comment on it until we have